Welcome back to the Opera Wire podcast. I'm here with my co-host David Salazar, and today we are very honored to be with the legendary mezzo-soprano Denyce Graves. Thank you very much for coming on the show. We're so honored to be with you.
And the honor is mine. I'm delighted to be here and very much appreciate the invitation.
So, in January, you retired from the stage with Porgy and Bess at the Metropolitan Opera. I was there to witness one of the final performances. It was so great to be able to see your artistry and be able to witness, you know, your artistry on the stage. What was the feeling, and why was it the right time for that?
The feeling was certainly one of the most extraordinary things that's ever happened in my life. And I don't know that anything will ever match that amount of overwhelm in terms of, emotionally, what that kind of buoyancy and uplift felt like. Um, Peter Gelb said to me that we'll make an announcement at the intermission. I don't know, were you there on January 24th? Because that was really extraordinary.
I
So,
wasn't at that. I was at a performance prior to that, but yes, I
uh,
saw I saw the images.
unbelievable. And he said, we're going to make an announcement just before, at the intermission. And so I thought that, they maybe going to say something and maybe people would applaud. And I had no idea that it would be the presentation that it was. I had not expected that there would be a large presentation beforehand with the chorus. And they gave me two really beautiful statues and acknowledgement of what our time together had been like. And then these amazing gifts from the Metropolitan Opera, this gorgeous light fixture that's in my home, um, and the plaque that's in List Hall. That was the thing that really, really took my breath away. It's the first of its kind, and I couldn't have even imagined such a thing. So that kind of a tribute just really overtook me emotionally, and I could hardly speak or function. I was really rendered just speechless. It was and the single most emotional moment of my living. It was spectacular.
I mean, I can imagine Porgy and Bess has a really important meaning to you in your career. It was one of the first operas that you did, so I can imagine that it does like a full circle moment as well.
It was definitely a full circle moment. I mean, it was the very first opera that I did, actually, back in the 80s with Tulsa Opera. I was a young artist at Central City, and Ed Purrington, who was at that time the general manager, was passing through Central City, and he just happened to come through the weekend that I was there as a young artist or as a studio artist. And he just happened to come through the weekend that I was singing a recital. And he came to the recital, and then after that, he offered me this contract of third lady in Magic Flute, and also Strawberry Woman in the ensemble of Porgy and Bess. And so I was still a student actually in school, and I was delighted and honored, and that moment changed my life. It really, really did. But I had Porgy and Bess doesn't have a huge significance in my life in terms of, that being a role that I performed a lot. I didn't. I did it at the very beginning, and I did not sing the role of Mariah that was sung by the beautiful and the late, great Barbara Conrad. But I had the opportunity to watch her, and I did in some of those performances channel her in many ways. And then when the Met did it back in 2019, it was the first time I think in about 30 years it had been in that house. And I was offered the role. I mean, I always thought that I knew the opera. Of course, I know the magnificent melodies and the stories around it,
Mhm.
but I myself did not have a big experience with it. I did it at the Met, and I did it with Washington Opera, and that was it.
Oh wow.
And so my experience with that is not, as vast as some of the other roles that I did throughout my career. but it was particularly meaningful. There's no question about what that opera represents for a lot of singers of color, um, what that meant, and to have that group of artists around me lifting me up. I remember having a conversation with the course master, Donald Palumbo, who was telling me that in 2019, when they were auditioning for Porgy and Bess, that they'd heard over 300 singers, and he said one after the other, everybody was a soloist. He said it was just an amazing display of such incredible vocal talent that he found stunning. And I was so excited about that because, when we were doing that, when I was making my debut in the role, and I realized that there were about 60 other people who were making their debuts that night. It was extraordinary, extraordinary. And I remember a moment that I came onto the stage early because in this particular production, Mariah, which is the role that I sang, had a little fish tavern. And so I would put sometimes hot water, hot tea, things to drink for myself. And so I came to the stage early to sort of preset those things and hide them on the stage. And I saw a young woman there who was just standing in the middle of the stage of the open, empty theater crying, and she said, I never thought that I would ever get here. And there's so many moments like that that I could share with you that just really took my breath away. The beauty of the people that were in a part of that production, and every voice that I could hear as I passed, and traveled in the staging. You'd pass somebody and you'd say, "Oh my God, what a gorgeous voice!" And somebody else, you walk a couple, and then you hear another stunning voice, and so it was really fantastic to have had that experience. And as you may know, for example, Brittany Renee, who came back this last time, was in the ensemble
Oh,
uh,
wow.
the very first time, and she sang the leading role of Bess. And there were so many people like that. There's a wonderful story of this guy who was an usher, and, at the Metropolitan Opera, and who auditioned and got in, and so many fantastic stories. So looking at those magnificent faces and that beautiful array of talent and was something that filled me up with pride anyway. And then to have them return that in their acknowledgement to me was very, very, very moving because I had grown very fond of so many of them. I miss them already. Um, and it was an extraordinarily stunning moment that just I will never, ever, ever forget. Such a beautiful moment like that filled me with such love and excitement and gratitude. And I also felt that that was not supposed to settle on me, that this moment was much larger than the celebrating of my career, that it was a much larger statement. And I felt that, and that has sort of ignited the work that we do at the foundation, and made me so much more grateful for life and for living and for how fast it all goes anyway. But to answer that question, yes, it was time, and it was very much a full circle moment. So my career began with that, and it ended with that, and that was something I never saw coming because again, Porgy and Bess was not an opera that I had a big experience with at all. I'd only done it those two times, at the beginning and at the end, and so it was sort of a very poetic moment.
Speaking about the foundation, which you just brought up, I wanted to ask about where did the inspiration come from? Yeah, basically, tell us a little bit more about the foundation for our listeners who are not aware of it.
I'm delighted. I'm delighted to share that. So, parallel to my singing career, which has been over 45 years on the stage singing, I've also taught, and I've been on faculty at the Peabody Conservatory and also the Juilliard School, and done a number of master classes all over the globe. Um, and so, working with the next generation of singers is something that always excited me, and it was sort of a gift. To me actually, and a dream that I didn't know that I had. When I was a student doing my undergraduate study at Oberlin College Conservatory, I had a teacher who was very old school, and she would not allow, as a freshman, she would not allow us to practice on our own. She would assign an upperclassman to practice with you in your practice sessions to make sure that you were implementing, her technique correctly.
Mhm.
And so when I became an upperclassman, then I was assigned to some of the freshmen and sophomore. And I was really good at it. And I had a really good ear. And people started requesting me and saying, I want Denyce to do it. I want Denyce to do it. And I had no idea what she was giving me. She gave me all my careers, right? So she gave me my singing career. Her name is Helen Hodem. My singing career and also my teaching career. I didn't know that that was something that I would develop. Um, in this profession, one has to be a bit myopic and you're always focused on your own development and everything that you have to do to have a successful and sustainable career, that I never thought that I had enough bandwidth to really be concerned with other people's development and growth and their own careers. That's been one of the greatest shocks of my life. And so I had always been singing, teaching together, and for anyone who teaches, they know that particularly where voice is concerned, because that's such a special kind of study. It's not like
Right.
anything else. I mean, you are that instrument and you can't see it and you can't touch it. And
Mhm.
and the person that walks through the door is the instrument, and you've got to address what's going on with them before you can create an atmosphere of trust and of playfulness, to begin working on their voices. And so I'm saying that to say that they quickly sort of burrow their ways into your heart, and they become part of your family, and they all live inside of me and in my heart in such a way. And so it's easy to get concerned and worried about what's going on with them. And so during COVID, I was so upset about what was going to happen with those students who had graduated. For those who were about to graduate, I thought, I've had a career. What's going to happen with these young people? And I was so concerned, and I called everybody to see how they were doing and what the plan was. Um, and that was met with lots of different attitudes and feelings. Some people were very angry, and angry that they had gone into this profession, which is very crowded and very narrow and very competitive and leaner than it was when I started out.
Mhm.
And why did you encourage me along this path? And that hit me really at my core. And I thought, like, gosh, I've got to do something to what, if I don't do something, then I too am part of this problem.
Right.
And one of the things that I would do, at Peabody, I have a farm in Baltimore, north of Baltimore City. I would sometimes have them over and we would do a little leader abend. And then after that was over, I would cook. And they said, Miss D, one of the things we miss so much is being at your home, and we miss your cooking. So I tried to create that online with a show called Cooking with Denyce. You can watch it. It's on YouTube. There's
Oh, wow.
several Cooking with Denyce. There's several episodes, and basically, it was speaking with them, going in the kitchen. We were all on the quarantine, and nobody could move, and the theaters were shut down. And it was really a way for me to engage with my students and to lift morale. And I thought, we've all got to eat, right? So we can talk while we're preparing, our dinner or lunch or whatever it is in our kitchen. And so that turned out to be very successful, because one of the things that I did was I got in touch with a lot of the opera companies in the schools that I worked for, and opera companies that had hired me. And I said, can you air this at the same time? We were doing that live Sundays at 2 o'clock, like right after
Right.
church. And so we had a lot of eyes and ears on this show, and it was gaining a really large audience. Simultaneously, a young woman that I'd worked with was singing outside of this old abandoned building in Pittsburgh, and talking about this woman named Mary Cardwell Dawson, who had created the National Negro Opera Company. It was the first of its kind, longest running, most successful, and run by a woman. And it was this building was dilapidated, the columns were down, and the windows were out, and it was just in terrible disrepair. And she was talking about this woman who was this impresario who wanted to be an opera singer. She went to the New England Conservatory. She graduated in 1925. and with the degrees in piano and voice, and she wanted to get out and make a name for herself as a singer, and no one would hire her as a Black woman. And so her response to that, because this was 1925, her response was, "Well, I'll create my own opera house." So she created this opera house for singers of color who would not otherwise have had an opportunity. And she took them everywhere, including the Metropolitan Opera. This, of course, was the old Met,
Right.
Carnegie Hall, to great acclaim. And she had chapters all over in Chicago and Detroit, New York, New Jersey, and Washington, D.C., and in Pittsburgh, where the National Negro Opera Company, formerly known as the National Negro Opera Company, now known as the National Opera House, existed. And so I was talking about this woman during the cooking show, as I was sautéing something. I said, "Have you all heard about this woman named Mary Cardwell Dawson?" And there was a lot of curiosity, and people were, since the show was live, what was typing, and there were all these ding, 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 ding. Can you tell us
Right.
more about her? Or I heard something about her. And there was a tremendous amount of curiosity about who was this woman, who was this great hidden figure who created this stage for African American artists at a time when no one else was doing that. And one of the well, she had many, many challenges, as you might imagine, but one of them was finding venues to allow an all Black opera company to come and perform. And she decided that she would not perform for segregated audiences, that she
Mm.
wanted to. She believed that music belonged, as I do, that music and art belongs to everybody. And so that was really difficult. And so, well, that was a great challenge that she had. So she lived in Washington, D.C., and she would perform in Washington, D.C. on this barge, on this floating barge in the Potomac.
Wow.
And that's where the Kennedy Center sits today.
Mm.
Oh,
And
wow.
I know this amazing story about this woman and her contributions, and I was so moved, and also at the same time angry that I didn't learn anything about her. Particularly at the time that I went to the conservatory, I had so many professors saying to me, "Why are you here? What are you doing here? This is not a profession for you." I mean, I had so many people, so many of my professors said that, "Wouldn't you be better off, doing gospel music or something like that?" And I said, "No, this is where I feel called to this. This is what my heart wants to do. This is what my voice wants to do. This is what my personality wants to do." But I didn't know that there was this Black woman who was considered to be the first lady of opera, who was the first impresario in America.
Right.
And so I was talking about that, and Francesca Zambello, who is the artistic director of Washington National Opera, said, "Denyce, let's have an opera created about this woman and what she did." And I said, "What?" And she said, "Yes." So we did. So she did. Francesca made sure that that happened, and I'm always and eternally grateful for that incredible gift that she gave to us, which actually was the creation of the foundation. Okay, so we created this opera called The Passion of Mary Cardwell Dawson. Carlos Simon
Yep.
is the composer, and Sandra Seaton is the playwright. And so we did that in Glimmerglass for 2 summers, and then we did it in Washington National Opera, and then it went to Pittsburgh and Charlotte and North Carolina and many different places. And so, because we had so many people watching us on a cooking show, a friend of mine said, "Denyce, this doesn't sound like a cooking show anymore. I mean, what you're talking about is you're talking about these forgotten, underrepresented, erased sort of figures and these voices that have been left unheard. This doesn't sound like a cooking show. It sounds more like a foundation." And I said, "What? A foundation?" And he said to me, Gilbert Hernandez, hey, Gilbert, said to me, "I think this is a foundation." Hadn't even crossed my mind. And so, what is the foundation? The foundation lifts up into rightful prominence those great individuals who have contributed to our cultural fabric, but who have been left out of the telling of the story. And at the same time, we invest in the next generation of up and coming artists. So, it was yet again another gift that sort of asked to be born. I didn't set out to create a foundation at all. I set out to try to find a way to engage with my young people, and try to lift their spirits. And they ended up giving me one of the greatest gifts of my life. And I feel like the most important work that I've done and that I am doing is the work that we're doing with the foundation. I actually feel that the 45 years on stage was necessary in order to give me a platform and a voice and a network to be able to do the work that we're doing now at the foundation. So I feel like uh, I am where I am called to be.
That's
And what is,
beautiful.
go
That's
ahead, Frank.
beautiful. I know that we've talked about the foundation personally. I want to know a little bit more about the programs that you guys have with the foundation, because I know you guys also have some singers that are part of a cohort right now, and I know that there's a lot of programs that you guys are running. So love to
Thank
know.
you so much. And I really appreciate this time and for you both allowing me to speak about this and sharing this with your audience, with our audiences. I'm so grateful for this moment. So thank you very much for that.
Of course.
As we speak, we are now at the Chautauqua Institute here where we are launching our third program, Generational Voices. So our inspiration comes from the great Madam Mary Cardwell Dawson and all that she did. She created this stage for artists who were overlooked and who were underrepresented. And so we have three programs. We also have three tenets, three pillars, and that is social justice, American history, and the classical vocal arts. We have three programs that correspond to those three principles. And the first one is called Hidden Voices. And so the Hidden Voices program is about creating works of art that tells the story of those great historically excluded voices like that of Mary Cardwell Dawson.
Mhm.
So, because of Francesca Zambello, we have the opera, The Passion of Mary Cardwell Dawson. We've done lots of exhibits that tell that have been traveling around the United States. We're working on children's books, documentaries. We do calendars, note cards, and we are in. We've done a lot of animation for K through 12, and that's in all 50 states where we animate these stories about some of these great figures that we don't know who have been historically excluded. So that's the Hidden Voices program, and it's creating works of art to get incorporated into the education and the teaching of our American history. And then we have probably our most well-known and forward-facing one is called Shared Voices. All of them have the name Voices. Shared Voices is our HBCU, Historically Black Colleges and Universities, and Conservatories of Music program, exchange program. And that is for faculty, for administrators, and for students, where the mission is to learn and to share with each other. And also there, because our programs also interlock like and they fit together like puzzle pieces. We want to make sure that, I didn't know anything about Mary Cardwell Dawson. So many people didn't know about Mary Cardwell Dawson. So many people didn't know about Edmond Day. So many people
Mhm.
didn't know about Chevalier Saint Georges. So many people didn't know about Nathaniel Dead or William Grant Still, and you just on and on and on and on. And these were not names that I certainly learned about. I certainly did not learn about when I was a student at the conservatory. So this is a program where we look at two very, very different teaching institutions around the same thing that we all love, and that is being storytellers. And if you look historically at some of the great singers, Robert McFerrin, the dad of Bobby McFerrin, Mattawilda Dobbs, even today, Kevin Short, Leah Hawkins, Solomon Howard, Jesse Norman, Leontine Price, all got started at HBCUs. And they started out and the list goes on and on. You would be
Mhm.
surprised how many who got started at HBCUs and then ended up studying at conservatories. So we basically build on that long-standing tradition of connecting the HBCUs, and we go out of the mainstream to find really talented people, and we pair that with the training and the rigor of conservatories or schools of music. And I am proud to say that we are the foundation is 6 years old. We're 5 years in operation with our programs. For 3 consecutive years in a row, we have had singers from our Shared Voices program go into the Metropolitan Opera London program. 3 consecutive years. 2 years consecutively from into the Houston Grand Opera Studio, and now this year for the first time into the Chicago Ryan Young Artist Program. So we are so proud of that and what we've been able to do, and connecting people who would otherwise not be connected. And we are learning and sharing from each other and widening the circle, right? Unlocking the canon and making sure that what we teach in the conservatories and the School of Music is a complete representation of all of those great creators who have made this art form what it is. So that's shared voices. And now we have what we are here launching as we speak, that just started on Sunday. We're here from August 8th through the 22nd at the Chautauqua Institute, where we are launching generational voices. So, what's generational voices? So, Hidden Voices is our K through 12 program. Shared Voices is the collegiate program. Generational Voices is I've got my bachelor's, I've got my master's degree. Now, what do I do? Now, where do I go?
Mhm.
And so we stand in that gap of vulnerability and we bridge that transition from being a student embarking on a career. But one thing that we do is we've created this mentorship circle that's intergenerational. So we take um, artists that are established, because that's the other thing is that there's a lot of time and work and preparation on entry into the field
Mhm.
and not really for sustaining when you're there. And you still need support like crazy, actually, even more when you enter the field, and
Yeah.
how you handle so many things. What happens if you're working in January and you're not working again until July? How do you sustain yourself, and particularly now in an ever changing industry? And how do you understand contracts, and how do you understand your taxes, and how do you understand roles? And that, Madam Mary Cardwell Dawson was that of an impresaria. So again, our inspiration comes from the work that she did and looking at what it was that she created. So we step into that role where we really nurture the. It's not the developing artist; it's really the established artist, actually. And so we cornerstone their careers with a legend in the field, someone who actually had a career and has had a successful career, and a contemporary day singer. And that
Mhm.
becomes their intergenerational artistic council. Where, when I started my career, I went to two of my role models, Marilyn Horn. I called her up and I said, "Can I come talk to you about this crazy profession? I don't know what to do." I don't. And she said, "Sit down. Let me tell you something." And Frederico von Stade. And and I found that throughout my career, there are contemporary artists today still who will ask for an audience to discuss some things that are going on in the field. Those things that the voice teacher cannot help with, or your vocal coach cannot help with, or the manager actually cannot help with. And so we take this artistic counsel and we surround that artist with them, and they go through their materials and look at their package of five, or look at what it is that they're doing, and they together, we offer a menu of so many incredible industry experts to to guide them. So we have financial consultants, we have tax consultants, we have diet and exercise, mental health, of course, uh, all of the voice training. We have the coaches, all of the different languages. We have career counselors, and so they each have 5 6 hours per month that with their artistic council, they can decide you need to spend 3 hours through the program speaking, learning about financial literacy, and you need to spend 2 hours on, diet and exercise or something like that. And they decide what that particular artist needs, what would be most helpful to where they are on that day or in that part of their development. And so it's a partner with you throughout the career that and we offer so many different types of professionals for things that you need in the business. This is a very expensive art form. You know, it's hard to manage everything that has to be done, particularly when you're just embarking on that. And so we create a real support team around you that you get to choose from, that enables you to have a sustainable career. Because that's the other thing, is that sometimes people can come onto the scene and they can make a really big splash, but you need to be, it's more than just about what happens on the stage. You have to leave that stage, and you are a human being, and you have to be a citizen in the world and in life. And you become, I believe that the stronger, the more sound and well-rounded human being that you are, you're enabled to be a better artist. So this is a very, very unique model that's never been done. I know that sometimes there are some young artist programs that offer a sort of one and done, where you have the opportunity to speak with someone, and that's, this is something that is there for the duration of the time that you're in the program, and you always have access to a myriad of different professionals that you will need throughout your life. And so it's super, super, super new, innovative model, lots of tentacles, and we have just launched that here at Chautauqua. So
Wow.
that's Generational Voices. It's a lot.
It's incredible. I think it's really interesting for artists to be able to have an experience like that, because I do think, like, a lot of times
Can you
people
guys hear
get out
me?
of
Sorry.
college and or they're in the professional world, and they don't necessarily have that ability to be able to have those mentorships. So I think it's really something very important, and I'm glad to hear about that. And in also talking about the history of opera, because a lot of times we don't have the complete history. And I didn't know about who Florence Price was, or Chevalier de Saint George, and learning about this new opera by about Mary Caldwell. Um,
Awesome.
that I that's how I learned about her, and the National Opera House now. I think it's really important. I'm so grateful with the work that you guys are doing and putting together. And I think, a lot of times we speak about the young generation and what's going to happen to the young generation. And I think mentorship, and from even Dave and I, like, as younger artists and whatnot, we've always found that having a mentor and having someone to guide us is always an important aspect, to be able to help young artists figure it out.
You
So
better believe it. And Marilyn Horn said to me, she said, Denise, only a singer understands another singer. And so that has been a bit of a leitmotif in the shaping and crafting of this program, because I'm able to say to, a young mezzo soprano, make sure you can sing the third act, and that's comfortable before you sign the contract for the whole role, right? Or sometimes what's happening now is they're doing acts 1 and 2 together. That's going to be very hard, and so there are so many things that only another singer knows to be able to share and impart. And I think we have a responsibility. I mean, we're all here because we love music, we love storytelling. We feel we have something important to offer the world. We know that music is a transformative art form that can change people's minds and hearts, and it is a kind of a universal language that can be a binding force for people. We know the power of music, and we're all coming to this because we have been moved or touched in some ways ourselves. And I think that, you can't take this information with you, right? So it's, how can we best serve what it is that we all love? And that is to share that and to help educate, and nurture those who are coming behind us. And everybody has something to offer, with generational voices. Certainly the field is very different, but there's certain things that remain the same. If
Mm,
Marilyn Horne said to me, if you don't have a technique, you won't have a career, period. That's
mm,
the end of the story. I mean, you still have, there's no way to fast track this thing, right? You can't leapfrog, or either either you have the technique for it or you don't. And that's all it is to it. And your voice will tell you, and the audience will tell you straight away if you're ready for that or not. And so you still have got to learn the material. You still have to study. You still have to learn the languages. You still have to learn the notes and the rhythms and the understanding it, and become a real integrated, storyteller. And there's still a lot that the legends, we're calling them, have so much to offer us and so much to
mm.
share. And so I think it's important to hear that, and to use that wisdom, which in many cases is hard won. I mean, this is not, this career path is a trying one for everybody. I don't care who you are. There's a
Yeah.
great cost, and to have that firsthand, from legends, to speak to the impact that has on one's person, is invaluable. You're not going to learn that in a conservatory.
Right. It's
Before
true.
we let you go, I have one last question. So you when I saw Carmen for the first time, it was you at the Metropolitan Opera. So I will never forget. That's the first Carmen I ever saw in my life.
Uh,
And definitely one of my favorites.
Thank you.
You're gonna be directing Carmen soon. I'd love to know how you view the role of your role as a director, and also what you hope to bring to this opera as a director.
So it isn't my first time directing Carmen. I'll say that I did that with Minnesota Opera. I also did that with Glimmerglass and with Portland. What I'm getting ready for now is North Carolina Opera. I'm directing a Carmen, and then I'm directing another Carmen after that with Opera San Jose. I was very, very curious because when I think was it 2022 when I did the first Carmen, when I directed the first one. I was very curious about how that might affect me, and how I would feel, or if there was any sort of twinges inside of me that wanted to do it. Not at all. In fact, relief that I
Mm,
didn't have to do it. Um, I think that, I certainly understand that, when you're portraying the role of Carmen, there's so much to think about, and that, my gosh, there's so much to do. I mean, it's the title after all, but you're concerned with your part. And as a director, you've got to look at everybody's part and how the whole thing works together, and that arc. And at the same time, I'm incredibly compassionate to the role of Carmen because I've had such a big experience with her. And sometimes I found myself just really, really actually being on the other side of the proscenium arch, where I wanted to really advocate for the Carmen, but sometimes there was, I'd have to say, well, but yes, I understand what you're saying. I really do. But what we need here in this moment is for this storyline to sort of, you know, um, have momentum and read through. So uh, there was that. And also, I said, I think that, with some of the Carmens that I've had, I said to them right away, you will be the Carmen that you're going to be. I'm not trying to insinuate myself in any way, or to try to tell you that this is how it has to be.
mm,
I want to see who you create. And I think that's very, very important for us to leave space for. I mean, there's certain things, obviously, about the personality and the characterization that is um, solid and has to remain. But I also think that she isn't one thing. She can be many different types, body types, and uh, different personalities, and I'm curious about that. And I think that probably one of the most shocking things that they heard me say is that I don't think that the name of the opera should be called Carmen. I think it should be called Don Jose.
Mm.
Interesting.
I think his is the one with the trajectory. He is the one that we see change from Act One to Act Four. The greatest change is his.
Mhm.
And she sort of remains who she is somewhat, but he is the one who spirals out from the moment we see him until the very end. And anyway, I have enjoyed the process very much. It's much more than I thought. And every company is also really different. I know that when I did it in Minnesota, I had so much fun doing the titles. I had so much fun just doing that. And there's some other companies that said, no, 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 we do that. We want you to do this. And there's some other companies where you are responsible for everything. What prop are the kids going to be carrying? What cap do you want the soldiers to wear? What kind of weapons do you want them to have? Are we going to use fire? Where do you want to take an enemy? Like every single solitary detail. And so that's been different from company to company. And that's been quite something because I will say that I'm a fast learner and I like to challenge myself. I'm super, super, super competitive with myself. I mean, you don't want to play cards with me because you don't want to play spades with me or anything. But I have, throughout the whole of my career, I mean, I waited to learn Bluebeard's Castle in Hungarian, right?
Hmm.
Like 2 weeks before. And that charges me up, when I have to learn things. But that's very, very different with directing.
Mm.
You've got to get in there earlier. And I'm sort of one of these people who the juice gets turned on, just before the 11th hour. And that doesn't work as a director at all. There are so many people who are relying on you and waiting for your decisions so that they are able to do their work. So for me, that's been probably one of the biggest hurdles in having to uh, reorganize my way of functioning and operating is that I have to get and make decisions far, far, far in advance. And I'm much more organic, but that doesn't really work with directing. So that's been quite the learning curve and me having to sort of still myself and make decisions early on.
Hmm. Wow. Wow. I mean, it's incredible to hear about that. Before we let you go, where can people find out about the Denyce Graves Foundation and about their gala? I know you guys are honoring this year Anne Ziff and Yannick Nizes again, as well as Misty Copeland. Tell us where people can find out more information about it and what else you guys are up to.
So thank you so very much for that. I do appreciate this time and I appreciate your generosity. So they can go to www.thedenycegravesfoundation.org. I'm sorry it's so, so long. And find out about so right now we are launching Generational Voices. And just after that, we've got our symposium, which will be on the campus of Morehouse. That's September 11th through the 13th. And then we have our gala, which is going to be in New York City on Monday, September 28th. And we are so incredibly honored to be able to recognize the spectacular work of these great individuals who have contributed so much to the art form and whose example we want to emulate and want to share with the public. So that is Yannick and Anne Ziff, my gosh, an amazing, amazing woman. and Misty Copeland, who we all know and love. And so that's going to be our Harvest Moon Gala, which is going to be on Monday, September 28th. And that's going to be New York City. And that information is on the website. And of course, please do like and follow us and all the stuff on social media. We'd love to get your eyes and your input on the work that we're doing. We do listen to suggestions and recommendations from people. And so we're a very, very open organization, and we want this to be something that serves the industry and serves the young artists and the art form itself. So we have a team of 14 people. We've got mostly singers. And so there's that real understanding about what it is that we're doing because it's personal.
Amazing. Well,
Thank
thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much once again, Denyce, for this opportunity. It's really an honor to be able to speak with you and to hear your story and to hear the story of the foundation. Thank you again to all of our listeners here today. It has been an honor to present this podcast to you guys. You can follow us on operawire.com, of course, and on all of our social media platforms. Again, thank you very much, and we will see you at the opera.
Thank you.
Thank you.